my distant fellow distancers, I hope you're all staying safe, steering clear of any anti-lockdown protesters or other morons. Anyone else noticing how many people have really great eyes now that a person's eyes are all you can see? Last week, Dennis Prager of my alma mater, Prager University, go Devils, wrote an article asking whether the lockdown worked. To which I would say, it worked so well, Dennis, you can wonder whether it worked, and if it was ever even needed in the first place. Dennis is like the person who has a vicious bacterial infection that won't go away and finally goes to the doctor getting some antibiotics. Then, when the infection clears up, he says, I probably didn't need the antibiotics after all. In the article, Dennis demonstrates his ignorance of exponential numbers, dismisses the models which led to the lockdown, and berates the entire idea of experts. Dennis has been following the Fox News crowd who have recently jumped on the cure can't be worse than the disease bandwagon, arguing that we need to get back to business now, while as many of our fellow citizens as died on 9/11 are dying from coronavirus every day. My favorite thing about the article is that just 6 days after Dennis published it, his boss and orange object of his affection threw him under the bus, saying,
if we didn't do it, you would have had 1 million people, 1.5 million people, maybe 2 million people dead.
This is the problem with worshiping an unstable buffoon. That's what Dennis called Trump, a buffoon, before he took power. Of course, Dennis wrote all of this a few days ago when Trump was supporting the people protesting his own lockdown guidelines. Can that be right? Is that right on the prompter? That's nuts. Is that what I want to mention a few things here in particular. First, this mantra on the right of the cure can't be worse than the disease can be employed just as effectively by those who want to continue the social distancing recommended by our health experts. If we open everything back up before any of the president's reopening guidelines are met, we're likely to bring even more economic misery, adding trillions to our national debt when the virus returns, perhaps worse than before. That economic cure would be worse than the economic disease, wouldn't it? I mean, if we hadn't locked down when we did, millions of people would have died. The dear leader said so himself, and that would take a serious economic toll on this country. But the stupidest part of Prager's article is his attack on the educated, the experts, whom he refers to with contempt as prophets and priests of secular religion. Yeah, guilty. You got me, Dennis. I like that my doctor, who treats my particular blood disorder, has been educated to a level of expertise in hematology and oncology. I like my auto mechanics to have expertise in automobiles, too. And I really like that my proctologist knows his way around my spectacular ass. It's crazy, I know, right? My initial instinct was to play all those clips we've been seeing of the various Fox News hosts, Dennis's experts in common sense, getting things about as wrong as one can get them, including our dear leader talking about how the virus would just go away in April, or how we only had 15 cases and soon that would be down to 0. But then I realized there's an even better source of foolishness. Our very own prophet/dean, Dennis Prager himself. On March 3rd, Dennis wrote, "We go from hysteria to hysteria," suggesting COVID-19 was just another flu. This flu, like SARS and swine flu before it, has been given a name. Not knowing the difference, he pointed to the number of flu deaths every year, like it was just no big deal. Speaking of the virus, Prager wrote in that same article, the news media have been breathlessly reporting virtually every new diagnosis of the coronavirus 24/7, but they never bother to tell you that being infected, those contempt quotes are his, is for almost everyone not remotely life-threatening. I'm going to leave him to tell that to the 50,000 now dead. Finally, on March 17th, speaking of the experts' recommendations, Dennis wrote, "Though there is no longer an exponential growth in the United States, they may otherwise be right." No longer an exponential growth, Dennis? On March 17th, the day you published that article, we had roughly 6,300 cases and 121 deaths. 10 days later, we had 105,000 cases and 2,100 deaths. We're now over 800,000 cases and nearly 50,000 deaths. exponential numbers are a bitch, aren't they? Well, that's it for this week. I hope you all continue staying safe and smart. I apologize for bringing all this stupid into your lives. I just thought you should know what we're up against. The false prophets are out in numbers the likes of which we have never seen before. Believe me, that I can tell you. Wait, isn't a rash of false prophets a sign of the end times? Crap. Where did I put my magic underwear? I gotta find those. I'll see you next week.